Welcome to another episode of the Miles Offside podcast, where we talk a little bit of football and a whole lot of nothing. I am Oscar Puente, also known as Footy from Afar, and with me as always is my co-host. He's still nursing a hangover from the last time we recorded. It's Chuck Bailey.
He's not only nursing a hangover, he might be nursing a semi. Ooh! Tenuous link.
Hey. And with us on the other line, as always, is our super producer. He just spent the last 24 hours commenting it's coming home on everyone's Facebook posts. It's Ian Stimpson.
It's coming home. That's all I've been doing. All over Facebook and Twitter. I'll be defriended by everyone.
Yeah, well, everyone who you had left right at this point. Can't be that many.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have to
exactly.
be friended first.
Oh, understood. It's coming home, though.
Yeah. So, today we're going to talk about the 4 quarterfinal matches, how the teams did, what teams are going through to the semis, preview the semis a bit, and then obviously spend a good bit of time on England. And we will not be able to record probably before the final, so we're going to try to preview different potential final matchups that we might see, put down our last picks for who's going to win this thing, who's going to get the golden boot, the golden ball, etc. And that should wrap it up. So, to start off, let's check in again. It's been a while. How's that World Cup fever, gents?
In a state of blissful curiosity. I don't know right now. I mean, the quarterfinals, they were amazing. Again, the quality of this World Cup, we've said it every single time we've recorded. Like, we've enjoyed so many games. Like, there's been a few stinkers here or there. There's still only been 1-0.
Yep.
Ugh, bloody French. And yeah, it's just been so good. So World Cup fever. No, I'm still at like a solid 10. Like, it's just so good, and it seems like it started so long ago. Like, I was trying to think the other day about Russia, and they beat Saudi Arabia 5-0, and that seems like a year ago to me right now.
Yeah, I think it was 24 days ago or something like that. But it's just been so many football matches that it does feel like it was a different person back then. I don't even know.
Yeah, I feel we've all grown.
Chuck, I'm with you. You know, despite the obvious disappointment after Germany got knocked out, I thought I'd be a lot less into this World Cup, but it's just been so entertaining, just so fun. Like, I don't know. We've talked about this, yeah, like you said in the last few episodes. It's just been the most fun World Cup ever. I don't know that I agree necessarily that the matches have been good. I think there's been a lot of mediocre play, but I think that it's been completely overshadowed by just dramatic moments and fun results and all that sort of stuff. How about you, Stimmers? How you feeling?
Yeah, it is hard to know how to feel because I've just never been in this position before. But, well, I mean, I was 6 in Italia 90, so I just don't know how to feel about it. It's insane. But, yeah, it has been great. It's been really entertaining. This World Cup's been an absolute gift. I mean, we talked about my son last week, and like you say, he's just spoiled by it. It's not like this. It's not like this, but it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I think Chuck wasn't even alive the last time England were in a semi-final. So
yeah, that's good. I wasn't going to rub it in too much, but yeah, I was born in not to hate on you, Stimmers, or to hate on potential listeners out there. I was born in 1991, and so apart from Euro '96, which I don't really... France 98 is the first big tournament that I really remember. So Euro 96 and getting to the semis then, I don't really have any memories of that. Even though my first word, and my mum maintains it, was Gaza. There we go. And I had a Paul Gascoigne 96 shirt, which I think is still at my parents' house somewhere, the old 8 Gascoigne. But no, so in my lifetime, I've never had it. You know, France 98 was... Yeah. Obviously, Beckham lashing out at Simeone and crashing out at the round of 16, and then it's just been kind of mediocrity ever since. So it's so bizarre.
Yeah, for sure. I think France 98 is also the first major tournament that I remember. The Euros weren't on TV back in the day in the US, so the World Cups were really all we had. And France 98, I would have been 10 years old, so it was the first one that I really remember. Like, USA 94 was here. And I remember there being, like, excitement about it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any of the matches, really. But I do vividly remember watching France 98 in the final and all the drama around Ronaldo being in the lineup and out of the lineup and all that sort of stuff. And then 02, like, watched pretty much every match of 02. That was the first one that I really, really was like a huge soccer fan for. But yeah, this is unheard of for a whole generation of England fans, really, being in the semifinals.
Definitely.
It's new territory. It's got to be equal parts exciting and terrifying. But we'll get to all that. We'll get to England in part 2 of the pod. But let's start off going chronological order. Let's talk about France and Uruguay. That was the first quarterfinal we had on Friday morning. It finished 2-0 to France. Is that right?
Yeah, who predicted that?
I don't think anybody did. Did they?
I think my alter ego predicted that one. Quite proud of myself for that, for calling a 2-0 France victory.
Does it count as a prediction if you can't remember making it? I don't know. We'll see.
Does it? Yeah. Does it make it worse or does it make it better? Who knows?
It makes it better, probably. You should just get out of your own way and just speak from the heart.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, from a production point of view, I've insisted that you're drunk for every pod from now on.
Yeah, I don't think my liver or my girlfriend could tolerate that.
Just to maintain accuracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be sending a fresh bottle of Lithuanian Jägermeister your way after the final, one way or another.
Oh, God.
But yeah, it was 2-0 to France. Pretty straightforward win, I would say. Somewhat, of the 4 quarterfinals, I would think it was the most boring of them, or at least the most straightforward. You had the cross on a set piece to go to Varane's header for the goal, and then the Griezmann shot that really should have been saved by Muslera for the second goal, and France just kind of shut up shop. Uruguay had no idea what to do with attacking, especially with Cavani out, and a pretty easy 2-0 win for France. France have looked really strong. Like, they haven't really had to shift out of second gear other than like 20 minutes of that Argentina match, and they're just steady all the way through. How are you guys feeling about France?
They didn't even really have to work in that match because I think both of them, even though the corner was the first goal, the corner, the free kick for Varane, right? And so it's kind of we haven't actually spoken about it on this pod, and it hasn't come up in quite recent times in terms of football analysis I've seen. But zonal defending at corners and free kicks and set pieces, I'm of the mind that it just does not work. And I think that was the perfect example of that, because if you watch, Griezmann plays the ball in, you've got 3 Uruguay players staring at the ball. I'm not entirely sure which defender is going to go up to head it, but he doesn't really attack the ball at all. And Varane just comes out of all of their blind spots and just heads it past all of them, which for me, in a World Cup and a national team setup, is just terrible, terrible defending and just kind of unforgivable. And then you look at the second goal, which Griezmann doesn't even really celebrate because he's a bit like, well, whether he's claiming he's Uruguayan or whatever's going on. He just hits this kind of speculative shot through open space, about 30 yards out, straight at Muslera, and Muslera kind of ducks out of the way and tries to palm it, and it was just a comedic Karius level kind of mistake. It was just, I think it just kind of flattened that game, and it flattened Uruguay.
Yeah, I agree. It did remind me of the Champions League final and Karius. Both of them seemed to kind of expect a swerve and move to their left, but then the ball never actually went in that direction. It was sort of a knuckling, flat, no-spin ball, and then it just slipped right through their fingers, except Muslera doesn't even have a concussion to blame for it, whereas Karius had no idea where he was in that Champions League final. And yeah, I mean, that just completely took the wind out of Uruguay's sails. I think the last 20 minutes, maybe even the last half hour, they just gave up on that match completely. You know, everybody's talking about the defender who was crying in the wall with 10 minutes to go, like just completely given up.
You don't. What does that show to anybody around you? Like, that's it, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like, well, that's it, I'm done trying, I'm not going to bother, I'm here. Like, that's almost like, if we lose 4-0 now. You know, it's kind of the same as when Argentina, for Croatia's third goal against them in the group stage, where it's just very much like look, we're just going to lose this. And it's ridiculous, given how you should want to fight. It's all or nothing. if you do believe that that's going to happen, well, you've got nothing to lose. So you may as well go for it and try and hit France and hit them on the break, get a goal. But to just be there kind of broken already from a less than spectacular performance from France as well.
Super uncharacteristic for Uruguay, too. They've always been full of, like, fight. And I think they were channeling it in the wrong ways. They started getting a lot of yellow cards. They started getting into actual sort of fight situations. And it just got really ugly, the whole second half of that match for Uruguay. They just seemed defeated kind of coming in. They did make Lloris work for it in the first parts of the match, like the first 20 minutes. He had that one amazing save where he had to dive low and he, got it with his lower hand and had to have a super strong wrist to keep it out. But, I think that you saw Cavani's missing presence really affected them a lot. Suarez looked like he had no one to work off of, and he was very low energy. His stats were awful. He only had one shot and 0 touches in the opponent penalty box.
Wow.
Like that's, there's just nothing going on there. And I think that Cavani was doing a lot of the hard pressing from up front for them and also running off the ball, creating and passing, and just his absence almost had Uruguay out before the match even started.
Yeah, it was. You could tell it was kind of felt on both sides of the game for Uruguay, because you lose Cavani as a driving presence up front and that person who can hold up the ball, shift, kick it into gear, play a 40-yard 1-2 with Suarez. But also for the defence, like he's a very, very strong outball for them. So to not have that presence or that, right, we can get it up to him, and fair enough, you're never going to hit Cavani every time with a 60-yard pass, but at least then he can hold the team up and delay it a bit, give you a bit of a chance to reset your shape and regain a bit of composure so that you can then solidify and go again. And they just didn't have that. And I think it's going to be picked up a lot in the press and what have you in papers. But I just think if you're already breaking down emotionally like that 10 minutes before the end, be it with yellow cards or be it with crying, that's it. You're just done.
Yeah, they were.
Game over.
They
it
were
shows
very
they
defeated.
were beaten on every single level. And you don't even have to be great at knowing the game to know that.
Yeah, I mean, neither of the teams generated more than one XG. It was 0.4 to 0.7. And I think France, I can't decide if France were smart or if I should be a little bit worried about France, but they have very much played to their opponent level. I think trying to conserve energy, maybe that's the generous version of it. They only, like I just said, they only generated 0.4 of XG. They were equally defensive and content to just let the match play out and the clock run down as Uruguay was. They had that freak goal for Griezmann, and then they had, the one set-piece goal, but they didn't do much else the rest of the match. They were very solid. We've talked about them being probably the best defense, them or Uruguay, and this did kind of play out that way. France haven't had to shift out of second gear, and they look like they're just going to play all the way to maybe the final. Certainly they already made a semifinal, being very defensive, which is frustrating because I think France have a really, really good set of attacking players, and they could be doing more with them. And I think that the only time they've had to do that was when sort of Argentina gave them no other choice by being so bad and sort of luring them out of their shell by creating so much space behind. And we saw Mbappe running around. And to sort of bring it to the next quarterfinal, I think that them matching up with Belgium might see a very similar kind of way that match plays out, because Belgium also tend to invite other teams out of their shell and make it for a very open and entertaining match. And I think if France are finally going to actually go and attack and sort of show what they can do in the other direction, as opposed to just being very solid and sort of closing down the match, it's going to be against Belgium. So I'm excited to see that, because Belgium, obviously, big match for the quarterfinals. The big shocking result, the big super, super exciting match was Belgium-Brazil, Belgium winning 2-1. Did you happen to catch the highlights of that one? Chuck, what did you think of that match?
Yeah, I caught a few of the highlights, and Belgium, playing with an actual front three, kind of with Lukaku and KDB and Hazard kind of up there, and Lukaku having one of the greatest performances that's been lauded by everyone for his hold-up play and being able to beat people. It's incredible. I've been kind of critical as Ian has as well of Belgium, but I think in that result, I firmly shut me up. They've demolished a Brazil team who traditionally have been high on flair and excitement and ability, who in this tournament I think reverted very much to a much more efficient, streamlined workman kind of role. Like it was more just to get the job done. It wasn't really to excite, or it was just to roll around the floor in some cases. And I think for Belgium to just kind of sweep them aside a bit, even though it was only a 2-1, I think they outplayed them everywhere. And I think you're exactly right. I think France have been very, very defensive. But if there's one team that will come at them, I don't think Belgium are going to really hold back. And that's going to mean that France have to come out and go for it, because if Belgium go toe-to-toe, it could turn into another 4-3 easily.
Yeah, I'm hoping that one turns out to be a very exciting match and not a very sort of boring match, because I think, if France go really defensive and Belgium are afraid of the counterattack and try to play conservatively, then it could play out like France-Uruguay. But potentially there could be another Belgium-Brazil match there. We did say last time that Brazil were the better team than Belgium through the World Cup so far. And that if Belgium were going to win, it was going to fall on KDB, Hazard, and Lukaku to have the match of their lives, and I think they absolutely did. The three of them were just so spectacular to watch in that system. And I do actually want to take a bit of time to talk about the system, because I think other than obviously the exciting goals and the counterattack and stuff, the most fascinating thing to me watching that match was Belgium's, not only their formation, or I guess I should say formations plural, but also their tactics, because I haven't seen anything that complicated at a World Cup or even a Euros before. If you watched the match and you were looking closely, you actually saw that they played two completely different systems with players in different positions based on the situation. So when they were on defense and when they were looking to hit Brazil on the break, they were playing a 4-3-3 with, weirdly, Nasser Chadli in the central midfield, which he, when the lineups came out, I think I on our Twitter account was very much laughing at Bobby Martinez for being a madman. Yeah. And all of us were joking around being like, oh, Bobby's going to Bobby. Look, they're going to get destroyed by Brazil now.
Egg on our face that Roberto Martinez beats Brazil with a team with Nasser Chadli and fucking Fellaini starting.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ. Made me look a dick.
Yeah. Someone on Twitter said that it was like a Sunday League manager just rewarding the two guys who scored the weekend before, being like, yeah, sure, go, run, get a start.
Yeah. Or like when you're a kid and it's like, oh, it's your birthday, you get to be captain today. like that. Maybe you don't have that in America, Oscar, hence why you're much more competitive at sport, but it's very much a thing here in England.
Yeah. It was a weird lineup for sure, and I think everybody, even the smartest people that I follow and read, were like, what the fuck is he doing? But he came out and he just made us all look like fools. In that first half, I think Belgium genuinely played Brazil off the pitch. They were up 2-0 and they fully deserved to be. They had in defense, again, that 4-3-3 with Vertonghen kind of playing left back, but playing very centrally. Chadli in the central of midfield with Witsel and Fellaini. And then the front three was crazy. It was a false nine system with Lukaku playing right wing, which he had done a few times for Everton under Bobby Martinez before, but never to any particular success. And then he had De Bruyne playing a false nine, which was super weird to see, especially given how deep they'd been playing him the whole World Cup leading up to that. But it matched up really well with Brazil's 4-3-3, because now it sort of sucked out the two central defenders and he isolated Lukaku out wide, who was just bossing the defense and had the match of his life. But they were kind of going back and forth between that and the system you more would have expected, given the players that were starting, which is a 3-4-3. So meaning 3 central defenders, 2 central mids, 2 wide wing backs, and then 3 attackers. That was when they were in possession for longer periods of longer spells of time. Chadli was playing wing back, which is what makes a little more sense for him. And then the front 3 had Lukaku central and then De Bruyne out wide, which made, again, a lot more sense. But Brazil just looked completely rattled. They had no idea what to do with that, crazy, crazy tactics and crazy formation. Like, they just were lost completely in the first half. And by the time they started to figure it out, in the second half, they were down 2-0, and it was too big of a hole to sort of dig themselves out of. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think Fellaini kind of stuck to his role perfectly by just battering the defence and always being that kind of nuisance, that strong presence. You know, he's a big guy, and he, you know, we always joke about how he's all elbows and knees and everywhere and limbs all over the place. But it's one of the things that, as a professional footballer now, you never see. You never see that unattractive, effective, the Sunday league kind of player where they'll just get up in your face. You know, players such as like Troy Deeney in the Premier League, or maybe someone like Glenn Murray, Glenn Murray is one of the slowest strikers in the league, but you watch him play against defenders and they hate him because he's so physical, because he's so much, he's ever present in defence and always in your face, and will always go up strong for every ball and just hit you and gradually wear you down and wear you down and wear you down. And I think Fellaini did that perfectly. Now, there's also the luxury that Martinez has, you says, about playing the two different systems of having people such as Eden Hazard, Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, that you can go, nope, they have played in this position before and played for me, such as with Lukaku on the right. And then KDB just revert into the position he played 2 years ago, kind of ish, with being like a centre attacking midfielder, almost false nine. But then should we need to, we can rotate those and just really flummox the Brazilians, who haven't been the most inspiring team, and so I think that's kind of why they got caught out.
No, and I think one of the sort of unspoken storylines of this Brazil team, and Brazil more generally, is that they tend to actually be kind of nervy, and they don't know how to respond to adverse situations and things going against them. Kind of like Germany did against Mexico.
Last World Cup. Last World Cup.
Absolutely.
There you go. You lose one player and that's it. The whole thing crumbles apart and you get absolutely obliterated.
Yeah, and we are actually recording today on the 4-year anniversary of 7-1, which is kind of fun to think about. But, you know, I think that they're a psychologically damaged team. I think that they haven't played in a final since 2002. They did make those 3 finals in a row in 94, 98, and 02, but that's sort of the Ronaldo era. The original Brazilian Ronaldo.
Yeah, phenomenal.
He was World Player of the Year in 96 and 97. 98, they make the final. They probably would have won the final, but he got sick like an hour before kickoff.
Yeah, sick, concussion, passing out.
And then he played anyway, but he wasn't, like, you could tell that he wasn't right. And then in 02, he carried them, and they won the title that year. But then since he retired, they haven't been even in a final, let alone
not just Brazil, any South American teams. You know, since 2002, the only team that's got to a World Cup final from South America, or even, outside Europe, is Argentina. And that was the last World Cup. Since then, it's just been Europe. And once Brazil went out, it was, right, there you go, the top 6 teams left in, all Europe again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
I wonder to what extent that's starting to get in the head of Brazil. Everybody thinks of them as this powerhouse, and they've won the most World Cups ever. But it was really in 2 runs. You know, the Pelé team and then the Ronaldo team make up all 5 of their World Cup victories. And I think other than those 2 sort of dynasties or those 2 eras, they don't react well to things going against them. And I think that they just kind of crumbled. And you could see it in the second half. I think to me this match was very much a tale of 2 halves. In the first half, you know, the shots were 9. Brazil had 9 shots and Belgium had 7. And the XG was about even. I think Brazil just narrowly edged Belgium, but not by a lot. But then you get to the second half, and Brazil had 17 shots compared to Belgium's 1. Right? And the XG in the second half was like 2.5 to 0, basically, for Belgium.
Wow.
Like, it was absurd how much Brazil dominated that second half, and the thing that stopped them from winning, because they were creating really good chances, was finishing. And for a Brazilian team to not be finishing when they have golden chances like that, to me speaks to that sort of mentality of they were flustered, they were shook, and they just were too nervous, too antsy when it came to the final touch, and they couldn't put the ball away. That being said, I think Thibaut Courtois was also excellent. He had eight saves. And when, you know, Brazil generates 2.5 XG and they only concede 1 goal, you got to give the goalkeeper a bit of credit there. Even if he is taller than the average goalkeeper, right? Everybody's giving him shit for that on Twitter, but he deserves a lot of credit. But I think also, like, you look at Brazil and they just were creating chances, but they couldn't put them away because they were so anxious. I think the pressure was just absolutely getting to them, and that's the big story to me of this Brazil's World Cup.
You could even say that before, because the first goal, the own goal from Fernandinho, like, that's uncontested.
Yeah,
like,
and that would have, even if it wasn't an own goal, it would have been a handball anyway and a penalty because he scored it with his own arm. So,
but yeah, that just shows, and fair enough, Fernandinho hasn't played and he's stepping into Casemiro's shoes, and Casemiro is a very, very good player and kind of a lot will say very pivotal for Brazil. That's from a lot of people who know that kind of squad much better than I. But coming in, maybe even for him, that is the sense of occasion, the having to rise to that in a quarter-final of just two Brazil players without a Belgian player really, from my memory, within about a metre of them, both go up and then you head it into your own net.
Yeah.
And it just kind of shows there that they aren't what we believe they are still. What I mean? It's exactly like you said. They had these two powerhouse eras where, yes, they dominated football and arguably could have even done more. But now, what is there really for Brazil? A few Copa Americas in there, not really delivering at the World Cup.
Yeah, I think ever since sort of Ronaldinho took over the spirit of that team and embodied the Brazilian shirt, he, to me, was kind of a choke artist. Like, he played beautiful flicks and tricks, but when push came to shove, he didn't win. And it sort of carried on to Neymar now being the next iteration of that, beautiful flicks and tricks. Beautiful player, but doesn't have that sort of cutthroat winning mentality.
So, but is there any argument that Brazil were harshly done to? They had one or two penalty shouts, one involving Neymar, if I remember. I mean, were they harshly done to at all on those?
I don't think so, but because even with the VAR coming in, referees are always supposed to be unbiased and down the line and look at every incident, regardless of who the person is or what other situations leading up to it or anything. However, I think because of the way Neymar is and his play acting and all of those things, it is incredibly difficult, especially given how fast-paced the game is, how much pressure there is on referees. It is impossible to not kind of favour in that situation. He's probably not bothered. And if he doesn't get the thing in his ear from VAR saying it's conclusive, then it's not going to be given. And that's the fail-safe that's there. However, Brazil can't feel hard done by because it's a situation they've created themselves by having the boy who cried wolf.
So looking ahead to the semi-final then, France versus Belgium, Chuck, who do you think is going to... How do you look at that matchup? Who do you think is going to come out of that?
Incredibly tough to call this one. There's so many different variants now that we've seen with these teams, even just looking at it, like we've said with Belgium in the last game against Brazil, of what they can do that's different. And France have been very, like we said, very defensive and still looked really good on the break. God, I'm looking forward to this game so much. I
definitely am too.
I thought I was looking forward to Belgium-Brazil, but seeing this one line up, I think is way more exciting. And I thought Brazil would get through.
Yeah, but when I look at France-Belgium, like you said, it's super hard to call because there's so much variability to how both of those teams play. If France come out ready to attack, then I think they can probably play Belgium off the pitch because Belgium doesn't have the defense to keep up with the France attackers, especially with how slow Vincent Kompany is and Kylian Mbappe just running at him. That's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, that's where the biggest questions can be asked for Belgium.
Yeah, but I think France are more inclined to play defensive for whatever reason. That's the system that they decided to play. And so, if KDB, Hazard, and Lukaku have a day, then they can beat anybody. Even that France defense, which has been so stellar. So it's really, really hard to call. If I had to guess, though, I would say that Belgium, like Argentina did, although they're not nearly as bad, obviously, will coax France out of their shell and sort of invite them to attack, almost make it irresistible. And by doing so, I think they'll have some good chances. I think it's going to probably be a close match, high scoring. But for me, I'm going to still edge it to France. Just because, like, if we're looking at all the possible versions, even if it's a shootout, there's a 50-50 shot that France wins because their attackers are just as good. But if France stay in their shell, I don't know that Belgium will know what to do. Like, France are a much taller, bigger team, and they have that X factor of Paul Pogba. So I would guess France, and I'm gonna say 2-1.
I think it's fair. But you say about being tall and being powerful. What about Thibaut Courtois? He's so tall and so powerful, Oscar.
Yeah, it's unfair. It's unfair how tall he is.
So unfair how tall he is or how big his nose is. It's one of those ones I want it to go to extra time because I don't want it to ever end.
Yeah.
But I also would love for it to be some sort of super intense 90-minute just extravaganza of take someone who's never seen the game of football before and sit them down and say, this is the World Cup, this is all or nothing, watch this. I want it to be that so much. I'm going to go close to you in that I think France will win it, but I think France will get it in extra time. So I'm going to say 2-2 in regular time, but 4-3 after extra.
Wow. Okay.
Like, 3 goals in extra time.
Yeah, mental.
Wow.
I'm not even drunk this week, guys.
Yet. I don't know. I don't think it can live up to Belgium-Brazil. Belgium-Brazil was such an open, crazy, exciting matchup. Like that whole first half, even though Belgium were up 2-0, both teams were just going back and forth. And I don't think it can live up to that, to be honest, as much as I want it to. Stimmers, what do you think? What's your prediction for this one?
I think you've both called it pretty right, to be honest. I mean, I would go 1-1 and going into extra time and France nick it 2-1. Yeah, I can't split them, really. I mean, I think there's a wafer between them, I really do.
There's justifications for every single possible outcome in this game.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it great. And it's not in the negative way, really. It's just in a positive way that, no, this team could really attack it. No, this team really could. And I just cannot see it being that both of them sit off and be defensive.
Yeah, I really hope that's how it comes down. It'd be a shame. It would be such a shame to watch these two teams play and have it be a boring 90 minutes where France just sits deep and Belgium look frustrated. So I really hope we do get the attacking thing that we want. So that's all three of us picking France to go through, which means that if you are placing your bets now, go ahead and put your money down on Belgium because, there's not a chance that we're all going to be right. That does it for part 1 of the pod. When we come back after the break, we're going to look at the other 2 quarterfinals, get into England a whole lot, obviously, and then try to make our predictions for what might happen in the final and who might win. So join us after the break.
Welcome back to Miles Offside podcast, where we're reaching the very, very, very end of our World Cup preview shows. Well, the last one, actually, to be fair, since we're going to be recording after the final now, where we're talking about the quarterfinals. We've already gone through one game with a few calamities, one game that was pretty much Oscar's game of the tournament. Would you say, Oscar?
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Hands down, there we go. Now the one that me and Ian have really been waiting to talk about.
Croatia-Russia?
Croatia-Russia, yes. Right.
Oh, what a barn burner.
Hold on to your seats, lads, for 50 minutes of solid analysis of this one. It was boring. England-Sweden. Ian.
My word.
It's coming
I
home,
mean...
Ian.
It's coming home, isn't it? Well, it's so hard not to get carried away with the wave of memes that have just been. I've never found that sort of thing funny, but I just absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving it.
It's not that I've never found those things funny. It's that I've always got pissed off with them so quickly. And this one, just every time I see a new one come out, I'm like, Shawshank Redemption, tick. Matrix, tick. Family Guy.
I love the Matrix one.
Yeah,
the Matrix one's really good. Oh, it's so good to think that England are in a World Cup semi-final.
Hey, what did I tell you when you guys got this side of the draw? Huh? I was all happy and you both were like, oh, no way. We can't count anything and England is going to lose. They'll find a way to bottle it. And blah, blah. Now you're in a semifinal against a team that hasn't looked that good.
No, not recently.
No, right? The Croatia have had one good match. Let's get Croatia-Russia out of the way. Croatia had one good match against Argentina. They've played two knockout matches that have been pretty boring, and they haven't looked good. They played down to their opponent's level instead of to what they're actually capable of.
Yeah, both gone to 120 minutes, both penalties.
Yep, the only really good player has been Modric. He's carrying them. Rakitic hasn't been to what he can do.
Yeah, they haven't really clicked.
Yeah, they've been pretty bad. If I'm England, I'm licking my lips at the thought of playing Croatia. It's certainly over getting Russia because, Russia also had played to 120 minutes twice, but they have something special going on with them that allows them to recover a bit faster.
Yeah, you're alluding to them being the host nation. That's right.
That's the one.
Right?
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
It
provides a massive boost. It really does.
Yeah. It really, runs through their veins.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Credit to Russia, as much as they were probably, doing things that they maybe weren't supposed to. They were supposed to
winning.
Be a terrible
team.
team.
They weren't supposed to be winning.
They were
supposed to be fucking shit going into this tournament. Yeah. Can I just say though that they were lauded as by the Russian press. It's kind of very similar to England actually, weirdly. The worst Russia squad that's ever been, the worst host, that this tournament was going to be marred with hooliganism and political bullshit. And so they opened the tournament with 5-0 against Saudi Arabia, which was astounding. They then smashed the next team 3-1, setting themselves up as the host nation to have scored the most goals and conceded the least in the opening two games after, I think, Italy. And then they've knocked out Spain. Granted, in between then, they had a really poor performance against Uruguay and kind of got took to the cleaners a bit. But you wouldn't really fault them for that because Uruguay had looked good. And then knocked out Spain.
Yeah, full credit to Russia. I think they did a really good job, made themselves proud as a host nation, doing really well. They were, one terrible sort of attempt at a Panenka penalty kick away from making the semifinal. Can we talk about that first penalty kick? It's just so bad. The keeper had time to dive,
what is he
miss
thinking?
It, and then look up and be
Go back.
oh, yeah. Exactly. Just one of the worst penalties. Was he actually trying to Panenka, or did he just lose all strength in his leg?
He bottled it. It was just bizarre. It was he didn't quite go through with it.
Yeah, uniquely bizarre. Terrible penalty kick. But Cheryshev, I think we talked in one of the earlier episodes about earning yourself a transfer. I think he has had an amazing tournament. He tied Ronaldo for the number of goals that he scored. He looked fantastic. He had those goals, 2 goals on opening day, this amazing goal against Croatia in this match. But, Russia...
An own goal against Uruguay. He scored him at both ends. Both ends. He was loving it.
Just loves goals, mate.
Just loves goals. Just wants goals. That's all he wants.
Yeah. That reminds me, we had a kid on my basketball team growing up. I played basketball all through my youth, and we had this one kid where every year, at some point in the season, he would get the ball, get all excited that there was no one on defense, run towards the hoop, and score, only to realize that because no one was on defense, was the reason that it was our own basket. So we would pass it to him and he'd be like, "Oh my God, wide open! I'm gonna run and score!" And they'd be like, "No, stop! You're scoring on us! You're scoring on the wrong team." And the kid just loved to score, right?
He just loves it.
A for effort.
Yeah, not much else.
Not much else.
And I think the same thing we can say of Russia. A for effort. You guys did good. You performed way better than anyone thought you would. But now you're gone. Good riddance.
Massively.
Great move getting Lance Armstrong as their physio as well. Great move.
Yeah.
But Croatia into the semifinal without actually looking good at any point other than one match in the group stage against an Argentina team that turns out were actually just shit. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we did, to be fair, yeah, we did call from the start of the tournament that Argentina would be utter dog shit. But Croatia still did have that potential or were playing quite well together early on, that they looked solid and they could be a threat. And then you kind of get that Argentina game. And obviously that flatters them a bit. And like we've said, Argentina lost themselves and just kind of gave up towards the end. I think if the goals had started going in earlier, then it could have been 5-0 or so.
Yeah.
Then they played a Denmark team who, like, Denmark weren't there to play that game. They were there to nick a goal and stop Croatia from scoring. Like, that was it. So when you're playing up against that shutdown football, in the same way potentially as maybe we could say this is if it was England, it is very hard for teams to impress, and it's very easy for them to get worn down. And now if they've played that kind of game twice in a row, I just wonder how that can bode for England in the semi-final. Oh, just got a little shiver saying it.
Well, yeah, I think to bring it to England-Sweden, I think that's an excellent point, because Sweden also just showed up to try to defend. They never really looked like attacking or scoring.
Yeah, but no point did they change it up.
No.
If I was a Sweden fan, I'd be furious at the just lack of changing it up. When you go 2 goals down, there was half an hour left. They still had time to do something, and they didn't. They just didn't do anything.
Yeah, my brother texted me at halftime, and he goes, "So when are Sweden kicking off? I know England's out there, but..."
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious, because Sweden really just never, at all tried.
No,
they were just dead.
Everyone was talking about, England potentially underestimating Sweden, but maybe Sweden underestimated England underestimating Sweden. In a weird kind of inception of underestimation.
Underestimation vortex.
And yes, we underestimated England underestimating Sweden, who underestimated somebody, or I lost track of it there. But to England's credit, they put the game to bed. 2-0. Croatia couldn't do it, as we talked about, against two teams that weren't really good. And England, you had talked about earlier as being worrisome that they couldn't put the game away, put the game to bed. Well, here, 2-0, never had to exert themselves. They're going to be very well rested for that semifinal. And they clear and obvious winners the whole game, the whole way through.
I mean, we joked last time, but it did feel like it was never in doubt, this one. I mean, people who don't know football might have been nervy in the first 10 minutes, but that was just both teams finding their feet. And after that, it was genuinely never in doubt. I never felt like it was going to be a problem, this one. And that wasn't classic English arrogance. That was just looking at the game and going, they do not look like doing anything. This is not going to be a problem. And that was bizarre to watch a game like that.
Especially not counterpointed by, England looked like they're a bit shaky at the back and could just give the ball away at any one point.
Lose it at any moment, yeah.
At least it was happening the other end. And we were going to come onto this at some point, but with Sterling missing a couple of gilt-edged chances, kind of very close together, and not putting them away when England were already 1-0 up, which I thought was a big shame. But the way he played, I thought, was integral to keeping the game firmly on England's side. It's not about, I think, you don't have to have the greatest knowledge of the game to understand that it's not just about the person who has the ball, or it's not just about putting the ball in the back of the net. Sterling making all of those runs and getting into those situations meant Sweden could never, ever, ever push up.
He took 2 players with him most of the time because they were so scared of him.
Yeah, there you go.
He was so fast running in behind. Shades of Kylian Mbappe against Argentina just looked so dangerous. And he didn't happen to put those chances away. And everybody talks about, it's been so long since he hasn't scored for England in a long time. But if you look at, there's another, just to go full stats nerd on you guys. We've already talked about XG, or expected goals, as being a good way to measure a team's performance and the quality of chances that they created. But there's a sort of building off of XG, there's this newer metric called XG chain, which essentially goes like this. It's a way of measuring, and it's in its nascent stages. It's not fully developed the way XG is, but it's a way of measuring an individual player's performance within the context of a team. And so the idea is that, let's say there's a shot that is worth 0.4 xg when the shot gets taken. What XG chain does is it contributes the number 0.4 to every single player up the chain of possession that was involved in that play. So starting with, let's say it was a goal kick, the keeper gets 0.4 towards his number. And the midfielders, everyone who touched the ball gets 0.4 towards their numbers. And when I first heard of it, I was like, oh, that everyone's XG chain is just going to be through the roof. That's not going to be that useful of a measure. But it's been proven over the course of the last season, because it's a really new metric, to show that actually the guys who get the most assists and the guys who score the most goals also have the highest XG chain, and your defensive midfielders, who aren't really there for their creative play and for their attack, don't have that high of XG chain because they're not involved in as high of a percentage of attacks. So it doesn't actually favor incorrectly certain players. And the reason I bring it up is if you look at the XG chain numbers for this England squad, both through qualifying and at this World Cup, Raheem Sterling is actually at the top. And so even though he hasn't been putting goals away or even getting assists necessarily, his involvement in the way that they play and the way that they go about creating chances is more integral than any other player on that England squad, including Harry Kane. And so, he has been maybe unlucky, maybe bad with his finishing. He has, I think, 1.25 XG shooting created, and he obviously hasn't scored a goal, so that's significantly underperforming that. But using those more advanced metrics, you can see that his involvement is vital, really vital to the way that they go about playing. And so for us, like we talked about this last time, we do officially ride or die for Raheem Sterling. Like, he is one of the official players of this podcast. And despite those 2 chances that he wasted, I still think that he was one of the most important players on the pitch that day for England.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very interesting. Also, very good use of the word nascent there. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think you're exactly right. And I think, again, it's going to be the fashionable thing to pick on Sterling. But you look at Kane, who is on for the Golden Boot, and a stat came up, I think it must have been the Colombia game. Colombia was the last time he scored. 6 goals from 6 shots on target. But 3 of them are penalties, 2 kind of tap-in-y, and 1 of his goals, obviously I don't think this counts as a shot on target, was from Loftus-Cheek's shot, which hit him on the back heel, massively deflects and goes in against Panama. But no one's criticising Kane for not really being in the right position. No one's criticising Kane for the fact that the most integral part of his play for England has been his hold-up, similar to what we were saying earlier with Lukaku, and how he allows people to, being very, very selfless at times, to allow the rest of the team to catch up to him and play them in, and that's why Sterling is getting these looks. And it means that you create a bit more of a dynamic threat. A lot of people will say, oh, well, if Sterling's missing this, well, we need to change the game plan. Well, no, you don't, because that game plan is part of another game plan where, okay, so if they do always mark up Sterling, great, that means we're going to free up someone elsewhere and we start to play slightly differently. Or if it means that they double up on Sterling, well, guess what? Harry Kane's still going to be there in the middle. And then what are they going to do if he starts advancing up? Are they going to put 2 on him? Instantly, you've got 4 defenders on 2 attackers. There's going to be space everywhere. And so I think Southgate playing that way and allowing Sterling to express himself in a way that has been hugely, hugely built by Guardiola over the last year means that people should really just fucking lay off him. Like, don't worry too much about those 2. Like, in the moment, of course, like, you're gutted because you think, oh, it's right there, and you still have that feeling of, oh, it's England. Like, I still feel, Oscar, you saying about us earlier and being so critical of England being on this side of the bracket and it being like, well, it doesn't matter. But that's because we've never had any reason whatsoever to get excited by the England team. Ever. But I just think it's great to finally have a team that you can get behind and you can see that something there is working. And I think even though once we got through to that side of the bracket and people said, oh, well, this is England's best chance ever. I think we should still look at it with the eyes that we had pre-tournament. That if England do really well in this competition, which no one can say England haven't now, you have to be happy with it. And that's it. And I think every single one of those players can walk out of this tournament with their heads held high and know that they've made a huge impact to people like me, Joe Public, who would never watch an England-friendly game and could not give a shit before. And I think that is very, very telling of what Southgate and what those players have done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to give like so much credit to Gareth Southgate for, we see it. Other managers, weaker managers or older, more conservative managers might be pulling Sterling for missing that chance or pulling Kane for not really getting that many chances off inside the box. But Southgate has the tactical awareness or the understanding that they are doing more than just the obvious things. They're playing within a system, and there are knock-on effects to the things that they do. And I think that he's been, I guess Bobby Martinez had an amazing performance against Brazil, but for the most part, he's just been letting the players do what they do. Whereas Southgate has these guys working in very specific and excellent ways. And we've talked a lot about like new look England. They're not just trying to shoehorn stars into positions. They're actually finding players that do certain things in certain ways for the system that they want to play. And I think that to Gareth Southgate's credit, I think to me at least, the three best players for England so far have been Jordan Pickford, Harry Maguire, and Kieran Trippier. And if we look at those three guys, like none of them are superstars by any measure. I think your casual football fan from another country has probably never heard of Harry Maguire, doesn't know what team Jordan Pickford plays for, right? Like you look at Kieran Trippier, and he doesn't even start for his club. But meanwhile, in the England setup, he's been vital to his delivery from the right side to the way that they play. Like those three guys, at least for me, have been hands down the three best players, as much as Sterling and Kane have been doing what they need to do. And that's so different than what we ever would have seen before for England.
Absolutely. And you can see that getting that far in the competition as well, and some of the results we've had, the fact that you picked three guys at the back is incredible. But I think you can pretty much pick out every single individual player and sing their praises or say that they've contributed in one way, shape or another.
Yeah, I think the only really
because I have to kind of include Jesse Lingard in that. Even though if you want my thoughts about Jesse Lingard, see the last episode. I still haven't changed my mind on that. The only thing I'm still concerned about, even if he got the goal, was Dele Alli.
Yeah, I was about to say the only player I think in that 11 is Dele Alli. I still think there's no way any of these guys lose their spots at this point, right? Like they're nailed. They're and Gareth Southgate would be crazy to change anything. But I do think that like in a different world, Loftus-Cheek would be the better option there, given what Dele Alli has actually done, despite scoring a goal. Stimmers, you want to chime in a bit? I hear you in the background there.
Well, I wonder whether they, because you're absolutely right. Of course, he's going to start the same 11. It would be crazy to do otherwise. But I think if he plays Ali and nothing's really happening at the hour mark, then he's going to hook him. And he ought to.
He ought to, but I don't think he would. That's the one thing we do say about Southgate is he doesn't really bring on subs very early. I think it's become a real big thing for a lot of managers. I know, speaking from personal experience with like Hodgson at Palace. Now, granted, we've had like massive injury problems or stuff like that. But when you're making your first substitution at sort of 80, 82, 83 minutes, you start to wonder, well, what actual impact can that player have? Like, granted, it's going to put a bit of fear into the teams if in the 80th minute when we're chasing a goal we put on Vardy, because he's just going to be up for it with anyone, and he's going to want to attack every defender. He's going to want to go after every ball. But that's only 10 minutes. Like, I always find, like, you need to give people sort of 70th minute. If it's a true impact player, you really need to bring them on in about the 70th minute or so that they get up to the speed of the game and can hurt them. Whilst the other teams are still lagging, they pick up in about the 20th minute.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Ruben is not an impact sub. I think Ruben is at his best when he gets to start the match and sort of build into it and see what the tempo of all the other players are. Whereas when he comes in, and everyone else is already in the middle of it or maybe coming down towards the end of the match, you're not going to get the best out of Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So to me, the more impact sub option, if we're replacing Dele, would be in a situation where you're trying to protect the lead and you bring on like Eric Dyer to sort of shore up the midfield next to Henderson. But he'd be crazy to change anything. I think Sweden was a particularly excellent matchup for England at the quarterfinal stage after the drama of the penalties, where they're going to need a more sort of level-headed, relaxed match to sort of come down from that high but still get a win.
And not be getting fucking punched and kicked and headbutted across the park.
Yeah, because they're not going to do that.
Yeah. And if you look at the tactical setups here, Sweden play like the most old-school conservative 4-4-2. 4 defenders across, 4 midfielders across, 2 of them wide, and then 2 big absolute units in attack. Yeah. And if you look at England's setup, they play the 3-4-3, so 3 center backs, 4 across, and then 3 attackers. Historically, if you read Jonathan Wilson in his awesome book, Inverting the Pyramid, which I do recommend for anyone who's into tactics and sort of getting into soccer for the first time, or it hasn't really read up on the history of tactics before, the 3-4-3 was specifically invented to counteract and negate the 4-4-2. Back in the 80s, I think, if I'm getting that right, maybe late 70s. And so for England to get a matchup against a very conservative 4-4-2 after those penalty kicks, and when they kind of want to take it easy and go into the semifinal pretty well rested, was perfect. Right? Like that exactly played out the way you would expect a 3-4-3 versus 4-4-2 to play out, especially given that England are the more naturally talented players.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fluidity in that back line, and I was quite confused at first with playing with the England back three being Stones, Maguire and Walker in there. Bearing in mind Walker traditionally is the guy who would be bombing down the wings because he's got a lot of pace on him and he's very good, but now having seen it, it makes perfect sense because they can all kind of play the similar role together in that, well, you never know which one is going to go forward with the ball, and it does seem to be Maguire more.
They're all happy on the ball as well.
They are. They're all very, very comfortable, so it means that they can play that ball out. Harry Maguire's got a good touch. Stones hasn't had any heart-in-mouth moments for me. Walker had one against Colombia.
But he absolutely pelted back for that.
He knew he'd fucked up there. So it's great to see actually that again in another way of just being shut up and it working. We said on the last episode how good Maguire's looked and how good here, and someone maybe even thought that maybe he was going to score the goal. Can't remember now who it was.
Well, we know you can't remember.
Yeah, well, he's got a massive head, didn't he? Yeah, that's very true. He's got a massive head. Of course, he should have scored a header. Of course, he was going to thump one in. But yeah, I just think all across the park, England have done exceptionally well, and I think no matter what happens from here, that's it. It's a win, and it's a great tournament for England.
Yeah.
One thing I will say that I thought though, so England, Ian, it would be good to get your feelings on this as a fellow Englishman. Do you think your feelings after the Colombia game massively outweighed your feelings after the Sweden game? Because it almost seemed like the win after Sweden was a bit of an anticlimax.
Bizarrely, yes. Yeah, absolutely. It was the penalties, that's the thing. And the sort of, it felt, we'd been roughed up all game. They should not, it would have been a massive injustice. Maybe not massive, I might be overselling that. But it would have been an injustice if
no, it would have been fucking ludicrous. Yeah. Tell him.
Yeah. I just realised that I was getting all England about it. But it would have been an injustice if they'd have won. The added time that they scored their goal in was only because it took 3 minutes for Harry Kane to take the penalty because they're messing around. So it was like, to get, as we said last episode, to get the monkey off our back and everything was so important. And yeah, I was absolutely buzzing after that. I suppose a little bit because Sweden didn't come out, we just did what we had to do, and there is still a disbelief that we're in a semi-final, so it's just sort of, doesn't feel quite like it did after the Colombia game, but I think a good portion of that is disbelief. It really is.
Well, and it's hard to match the high of, finally getting the penalty kicks thing out of the way, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Even if that was around earlier, like that's such a stressful moment as a fan, independent of the history that England have with penalty kicks. Like it's so emotionally intense to have to go through penalty kicks, win or lose.
It's weird because we were watching Croatia Russia in my house, and my wife was like, Jesus, I'm watching penalties and I don't feel sick, and it was like, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's just like, I mean, I like it just from the spectacle aspect, just because, like you say, the first Russian penalty, you are able to watch that and just go, what the fuck was he thinking? And I just love stuff like that. It's just, it's great because you'll always get moments like that where someone bizarrely tries to put their individual sort of flair or whatever above just doing what the team wants you to do. And I mean, there's nothing else. There's no other way to decide it, I don't think.
It's kind of a very concentrated moment of seeing into like a player's soul almost.
Oh, totally. You massively see. So you're such an egotistical twat that you would do that. And but like when literally the whole, I mean, it was the broadcasting wise for the England game, it was something like an 87% share of the TV audience. What would that have been in Russia? I mean, Christ knows. And he does that for the first penalty. I mean, Jesus Christ. Just, well, he's probably got something else helping his ego out. But I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, so looking ahead then to the semifinal, England-Croatia. How are you guys feeling? For me, Croatia is going to be so dead tired, and they haven't looked impressive at all. Whereas England looked like they put Sweden away comfortably and have their batteries fully charged. I think it's England for me. But how are you guys as England fans feeling ahead of that?
Pessimistic, because that's what we do.
I'm buying into Oscar's Team of Destiny thing, certainly for the time being at least. I mean, like, yeah, everything feels like it's going the right way. Croatia will be tired. They didn't look great. I sort of half watched the Croatia-Russia game and was just like, we shouldn't have a problem with either of these teams. And yeah, now, like you say, it's Croatia who've had 220-minute games. It's hard not to feel good about it. It is.
Yeah, it's weird that in that situation you'd actually prefer... I think I tried to think of which team I'd rather play, and it's weird that I actually thought Croatia would be...
It was weird because go into the game thinking, it'd be great if Russia go through, easily the weaker team. But the more it went on, you were just like, I don't know who I want. Not a clue.
I think Russia, with all the highs, being written off, getting through the group, knocking out Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they'd have, they knocked out Spain. If they'd have then knocked out Croatia and then been in a semi-final in their home nation with the world watching, like, the fuck would I want to play that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't really downplay that factor, right? I think you guys are exactly right. If I was an England fan, I would be absolutely preferring to play Croatia. Now. Yeah, fuck off. I'm definitely not.
We'll take you on.
You are.
I did find myself rooting for you, which was incredibly frustrating.
Because you're coming home.
When I was watching the Sweden match, I got excited when you guys scored, and I was like, God damn it.
Because you're coming home.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
So USA to Germany to Iceland to...
Yeah, there's a lot of teams. No, the team that I'm very much rooting for is Belgium. Because the Chelsea connection, Hazard, Courtois, Batshuayi on the bench. If I'm going to give a score prediction for this, which we should, I'm going to give it another 2-0 to England.
Yeah, another 2-0. You didn't say 2-0 England last time, I'm pretty sure.
No, I'm saying
you
beat...
said England on penalties. Ian went 2-0 England, didn't you?
I did.
You got the score right on that one.
So I got one score right. You got one score right.
Mm.
Oscar didn't get a score right.
No, but I am the only one who called Belgium beating Brazil, which is... I'm going to hold on to that at least.
Yeah, but I called Harry Maguire goal.
Yeah.
So,
right. So then call something here. What do you got?
3-0 to England.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm going big. I think similar to like the Sweden game, I think Croatia will kind of, obviously they've got a lot more talent than Sweden, of course, but I think they'll be kind of cautious at the start. I think England will get another goal, probably from a set piece. Almost certainly, probability states. It's not that impressive of a prediction with that one, if I'm right. I will admit that one if England score from a set piece. But I just think then Croatia will attack it and the game will become a bit more open, but I just think England will see it more. Yeah, let's embrace the fact that we've had the rubber to green so far, and set myself fully up to have the rug pulled out underneath me. But it's coming home, so
I love it.
We still
Oscar
believe.
said, "How are you feeling about this match?" And Chuck said, "Pessimistic, 3-0."
Yeah. God, imagine if he was feeling optimistic.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, I'm part Croatian, guys. This is.
Oh,
Did we not? That's where it was going. Ian, what are you saying?
I reckon not as optimistic. I do think we win, but I think we probably nick it 1-0, and I think we take a while to break them down, but it will happen. But I just think we nick it 1-0.
Are we saying Harry Maguire on a corner and Harry Kane penalty?
Raheem Sterling, 2 goals.
Wow. I'm saving my Raheem Sterling goal for the final.
Redemption story.
Oh my God. The flames pouring out of the ears of the Sun newspaper editors would just be fucking phenomenal.
No, they would pretend that they liked them all along, too.
Oh, yeah, of course they will. They'll go
National
full
hero,
turncoat.
we always loved him.
As they scramble for some other way. Raheem Sterling dives into burning building and saves 20 children. What a prick. They'll go for stupid shit like that.
Scoring a goal in the World Cup final when someone was in a burning building in England.
Yeah.
He didn't save them.
But he still hasn't given us answers about Grenfell. Oh.
All right, so let's that's a good segue then. Let's talk about the actual final, because we're not going to be able to preview it after the semis. I think we all picked France-England to go through their semifinals, so let's talk about the final. If it's France versus England, how are you guys feeling about that?
If you're going to win the World Cup, you've got to beat someone good sometime, and we haven't had to yet. I mean, I don't know. I'd be on such a high just from being in a final. I mean, that'd just be ridiculous. But I'd have to say with my head that France are going to beat us.
Yep.
But I shan't be putting any money on that because I don't want to be rooting for it in any way whatsoever. But I think something quite special would have to happen. And this has been the World Cup of quite special things happening. But yeah, something quite special would have to happen for us to beat France, I think.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it exactly there. I think whether it wouldn't necessarily feel like a bridge too far, and I don't think we couldn't make a good game of it.
No, I think our confidence levels would mean that we would play up to the occasion. I
think
do,
so.
but
I think we could give it. Yeah, we could give a really, really good game of it. But yeah, I don't know whether it's not being objective or not, saying that England couldn't do it. I mean, the fact is France are the bookies' favourites to win the thing now with 4 teams in. So, of course, if it did go to a France-England final, then France would be the favourites to win it.
Well, to me, looking from the outside in, I think you are... you're right. You did say France are the favorites. If you look at the 538 statistical model, France are at 29% to win the whole thing. England are in second place with 27%, so not that far behind.
Ooh,
oh, wow. Okay.
Bloody hell, that is...
And ahead of Belgium. Belgium at 26%.
But that's because France would be favourites against Belgium, though, as well, of course.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but still, I mean,
exactly.
That surprises me. But okay.
But if I'm England, I think I would rather have France than Belgium. Just given the particular styles of play and the particular matchups. We talked about France almost playing down to their opponent's level while controlling the match. Not the way that Croatia have played down to their opponent's level and been terrible, but France don't look to smash their opponents and play to their best every time. They look to be efficient and...
It's almost like they want to match you at your own game and beat you.
Right.
So you're right. That's what it seems like.
As England, looking at a defensive-minded France, who would be more than happy to let them have the ball and then try to get some set pieces, that's the kind of match where one set piece or one corner kick gets you a goal and all of a sudden you're in the final and you have a lead. Whereas Belgium, if England go up against Belgium, and for the record, I do think that objectively with my head, France or Belgium are both better teams than England and would have to be the rational favorite, although I do stand by my whole team of destiny thing. But if you're looking at playing Belgium in the final, if because we said France-Belgium could really be a coin flip. If Belgium make it through and you're looking at England-Belgium in the final, I do worry that that's the kind of team that can finally actually make England pay for their lack of open play creativity. Although the narrative in that case, like to get Belgium versus England, the match that you were supposed to get at the end of the group stage that everyone had circled in their calendar, and both teams threw out their B squads and it was a rubber, dead, useless match, to have them actually go at each other in the final would be super, super, super cool and exciting, and I think everybody would just be super into it. But, you know, like you look at Belgium's front three, De Bruyne, Lukaku, and Hazard, they're not going to be afraid of going up against Maguire, Stones, and Walker at the back. Right? Like, they play those guys and they beat those guys week in and week out in the Premier League. Whereas the French guys won't know the English team as well. And I think it would be a much more cagey match. The Belgian squad, most of them play in England. Right?
Yeah.
Other than Witsel, that starting 11 is 8 or 9 of them play in the Premier League regularly from that match against Brazil. So they're not going to be slow getting into that match. They're going to go right at England. They're going to attack them. And they're going to know how to break that team down with the particular players that they have. And so if I'm England, I'm very much hoping for France to go through. Because either way, you're the underdog. But I think against France, their tactical setup and their style of play suits England better in a 90-minute match where you're just kind of hoping that one goal here or there wins you the whole thing, whereas Belgium are just going to... I could easily see Belgium cutting through England.
Yeah, and France slipped up with Euro 2016.
Yeah, against Portugal. And this England team are better than that Portugal team were.
Mm.
Oh, God, that gives me cause for optimism. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know. That's the dangerous thing. Just out of curiosity, I looked it up, and there has actually been one instance of two teams being in the same World Cup group and then meeting each other in the final.
Was it 1930?
No. Well, obviously in 30, it's like really early ones. I can't really comment on them because they're not the same form. But 1962, Brazil versus Czechoslovakia.
Oh, okay.
That clash of titans, I guess. Brazil won it. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's when we were talking about the age of Pele earlier. But I think that would be so...
He struggles to get a semi.
Good
Did
one.
he actually advertise for Viagra adverts?
Yeah, that's clearly the joke there.
I just thought he was
Thanks
old.
for catching up.
Fuck off.
Okay, so let's get our final official predictions for the three big things. The winner, the golden ball, and the golden boot. I'll start us off. I think that, you know, my head says France or Belgium, depending, probably France. But my heart says England, so I'm going to put England down to win the whole thing. And Harry Kane with the golden boot, because I don't think Lukaku's going to catch him. And the golden ball to... Oof, that's a tough one. I'm going to say Harry Maguire. No, it's never a defender.
No, it's
that was
never going to be a defender, is it?
Yeah. That was a stupid pick.
You'd like to
Harry
think...
Kane. It would be Harry Kane, right? That's the obvious
Harry
one.
Kane. So lifting all
Golden
three.
ball and golden boot.
I'm going to go with... It hurts so much.
You don't want to
I think if it goes to the final, then it's going to be France. I think they just edge it out. Golden boot, Mitrovic, obviously. Oh, sorry, that was week one. Sorry.
Sticking with it.
Still hope he could still come in. I still can't see. I think Kane's 2 ahead of Lukaku, isn't he?
Yeah, 6-4.
And that's that's the closest there is. I can't see Lukaku scoring 3 more than Kane. So yeah, I'll go with Kane, golden boot, and golden ball. Golden ball's tough because there hasn't really been in the 4 teams that are left. There hasn't really been any sort of shining star, has there?
Yeah, I think
really they've all got there off of great team performances.
It's a weird game to try to predict because like there's who do you think has actually been the best player, and then there's who do you think is gonna win the golden ball.
Because you could argue that
Lukaku.
Top 3. You could say top 3, probably. Well, no, probably top 2. With Lukaku and Mbappe, maybe with Kane behind, simply for the numbers.
Yeah, or Pogba. Don't sleep on Pogba either.
Oh, Pogba, yeah, he's been good. I think these games kind of define it. I think if France go through...
they do.
But last time it was Messi, wasn't it? And he looked cut a very forlorn figure as he stood up there as Argentina nearly won it, but he got the golden ball.
Yeah, the actual best player for me has been Lukaku.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any way he wins the golden ball.
No.
Unless he scores like a hat-trick against France, but...
Yeah, it's... I'm going to go with one, but, there's so many ifs, buts, and whatever, but I am going to go with Lukaku, I think.
Okay.
And Stimmers?
I mean, yeah, I've got to go with my head, so it's got to be France, as much as it annoys me. Kane for the Golden Boot, and you're right, it does sort of depend a lot on the semis and so forth, but I'll go for Mbappe for the Golden Ball.
All right, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our World Cup Finals preview. The next time we hear from everybody, we will be on the other side of the end. We'll know if England won or not, and
the World Cup will be over.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it.
I know, it'd be sad. It's been a great month. Really been a great month.
Oh, it's been so fucking good.
Yeah, we do really want to thank everyone who has jumped on board early with our podcast. Hopefully you've been enjoying our World Cup coverage. We are going to keep going after the World Cup. We'll nominally be like a Premier League podcast, maybe a bit of Champions League in there as well. But as the name indicates, we are going to also go off topic, talk about, Star Wars movies or music or, whatever's going on in our lives, different things.
Yeah. Let's not get too far into Star Wars conversations because I've got some very hot takes.
Yeah. We've had a few of those conversations.
Very angry about.
Strident views.
If we want to keep this podcast going, maybe we'll stay away from that a bit.
Spoiler alert, most overrated franchise of all time.
Well, on that note, I quit.
Listenership halved.
But yeah, that about does it. So good luck to England. Thank you everybody for listening. That's a goodbye from me, Ian.
Goodbye.
And Chuck.
It's coming home. Please.
It really is.
Possibly.
Maybe.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
See ya.